Welcome to Graphic Design and Photography. So at the grade 10 level, you would be taking graphic design and photography combined in one intro class. And typically what happens is students will find that they fall in love with one of the areas, and that's the area that you would focus on in your grade 11 year at the 20 level and your grade 12 year at the 30 level. Or some students do end up taking both graphic design 20 and photo 20 in the same year if it's something that they really enjoyed. So I thought it'd be beneficial to go through and show some student work so you understand what the program is about. So this is an example of digital illustration. This is the first project that grade 10s do when they start the program. These are done probably 2 to 3 weeks into the first semester, and they're done in Photoshop. And these students had no background whatsoever in Photoshop. Each student's given the same template to work with, and they result in unique designs that's kind of specific to the student. So again, you don't have to have any sort of background at all in any of the software. We got you, we help with that, we set you up straight from the ground. So these are kind of examples of more of the intermediate senior level. Low poly portrait there in the middle, done exclusively with triangles. And we have sort of these sketched portraits on either side, done in Photoshop and Illustrator. And then this is an example of a typography portrait. Again, these are only done using words and little to no line work. And this is an example of a senior project. We also go into logo design and branding. So this is an example of a student who designed a logo from scratch and then had it put, or in Photoshop, imprinted it onto a mock-up of a van. We cover magazine layouts. This is where students would do InDesign. Sometimes we shoot magazine covers in our studio. And then, of course, it wouldn't be a Photoshop class if we didn't inevitably take somebody's face and put it on somebody else's body, as you see there with Mr. Bean as Harry Potter. But we do also cover like double exposures, as you see on the right there, as well as some stuff that we do in studio, like that duotone in the middle there. And then on the far right there, we have a student kind of playing with tricks with the frame. And then more towards the grade 11 and 12 years, we'll kind of take that technique and we'll advance it even further into compositing, where it's stitching a bunch of photos together to create a seemingly realistic picture. Moving on to the photography side, we are lucky enough to have a studio here at Wisewood with lights, backdrop, everything. So this is an example of a couple of grade 11 and 12 projects that were done in studio. We do indeed cater to some of our furrier subjects after school. We have had students bring in their pets for some supervised photo shoots, which have been a hoot. And then this is an example of some senior level black and white portraits. So continuing with the black and white theme, there is a module that we like to focus on strictly on black and white, where what happens when you strip the color out of your photography? What does it result in? What type of message are you communicating? It's really interesting to see students' perspectives shift sometimes when we switch into black and white. And then on the flip side of that, when we re-inject this vibrancy back into our photography, how does that change things? So you'll see we have a studio portrait there done of one of our seniors. And then up top, we have this sort of light painting. We have what's called a pixel stick here in the lab that lights up that a senior borrowed and took it out on a rainy evening and had it reflect in the streets and resulted in this beautiful image there. This was a senior project done in a laundromat, I believe in Crescent Heights, for her color unit. And in the lab, just like you don't have to have any background in the software, you also don't have to have your own camera. So we have about 23 DSLR cameras. They're Nikon's, entry-level DSLRs, and we sign those out to students, and we teach the students how to use them in full manual, as well as some of the priority settings, so that they can hopefully create these wonderful technical pieces. And then in an extension of that, we like to go into some composition guidelines and rules. Of course, we tend to break those intentionally throughout the year, but it's important to know kind of the foundation of that. As you can see in the center there, some of our students earn credits for photographing yearbook. And then finally, we like to tell stories. So it's almost like a photojournalism part of the photography program where students are invited to take portraits, self-portraits, or even just photo journeys, statements on society as they see it, their perspectives. As you can see there was a student who was a football player, but also part of our military as a cadet, I believe, and that was really important to his identity, and he wanted to photograph that. Additionally, we go on field trips, so we go to grassy lakes, we go to Grotto Canyon. Within the city, we've gone downtown and toured around like the Central Library, and then most recently we have added Heritage Park to our lineup. And finally, happy to report we've reinvigorated our darkroom. We've opened it up again, first time since COVID, and it's been a really enjoyable experience this semester. We're excited to see where it takes us. So if you are interested in registering, you just ask your guidance counselor for the Graphic Design and Photography 10 course. If you're asking yourself, is this for me? Are you somebody who likes being creative? Are you possibly somebody who likes being creative on a computer? You definitely don't need art as a background. You don't need computers as a background. You can be somebody that just thinks they don't even know how to draw or has any experience in that. We teach you. We love all backgrounds. It's just if you want to be creative and if you saw something in this whole presentation that you want to create, this is definitely the place for you. See you next year. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to fire anybody in the program an email and we'd be happy to help you, or even your guidance counselor. They have tons of answers for your questions.